Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR or Extra Sports 1300, or perhaps you are listening on the streaming apps for those two fine radio stations. And that would be a good way to do it. That's how I normally listen to these two stations. You could download those apps for free. You can use them for free. And they are both sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for All. It will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. And I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You can call or text in your thoughts. Producer Ray Dominguez is standing by to take either your call or your text. I think Adam Silver, as we start with the NBA, should be happy that his ultimate vision for the league and taking over from David Stern has really come to fruition. What vision was that, you may ask? Well, it was the vision that the small markets, the smaller brands in the NBA matter as much as the big brands. David Stern was all about, Michael, the Bulls, Lakers, Celtics, all that kind of stuff. And Adam Silver, with a bunch of the rules he's put into place, has accomplished his goal of making the smaller markets and the smaller brands on equal footing with the bigger cities and the bigger brands. They can become champions just like the big brands, and they can become the most hated team in the league just like the bigger brands, because that's what OKC has become. Everyone, it's not a pivot, but the Batman line of you die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like, we had the quickest amount of time to go from that for OKC. In 18 months, they have gone from franchise that did it the right way in a smaller market and they built themselves up and they became champions to, man, these guys are insufferable and I hate them. In 18 months, that's got to be a record for the fastest that the NBA fans have turned on a team. But that's what has happened, because everyone is now figuring out what makes the Oklahoma City Thunder unlikable. It's not the stuff with Shea, and I have always contended this. It's not what Shea does that bothers you more than anything else. It bothers you, sure. But come on, you got to... Essentially what SGA has done is taken an aspect of the game or a skill set that every star in the league employs, and he's perfected it. Okay, so you may hate him because he's perfected it, but what he's doing, tune into Luka, watch Nikola Jokic, watch any star player in the NBA. They do the same thing that SGA does. He just does it better than everyone else. And I guess that's a source of frustration if you're a team going up against OKC, but that's not really what makes them so unlikable. It's what they do on the other end of the floor. Because at the very least, I think most people would agree, okay, if SGA is going to get that whistle, then I want our star. Here's another staple of Adam Silver's NBA. Every team seems to have a star. One. In the Nuggets, they have multiple, but their big one is Nikola Jokic. And if you're a Nuggets fan, you're saying, all right, I can live with the whistle SGA gets, give that whistle to Jokic. And it doesn't happen. The consistency is just not there. These smaller defenders, like Alex Caruso and Lou Dort, are able to just maul him without any repercussions. And that is the frustration. A team that gets the calls that they do on the offensive end should not also get the benefit of the whistle on the other end. There's no balance there. So that's more the frustration. It's not what SGA does. It's the fact that SGA does what he does, and then on the defensive end, OKC gets away with everything they get away with. And when I say OKC gets away with stuff, the stuff they get away with until Friday resides on the complete opposite end of the spectrum versus what SGA, nobody mauls SGA. Okay, but it is allowed, and Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets are not the only team that experiences this. OKC gets away with contact that is on the far other end of the spectrum, and that's what makes NBA fans even angrier. Until Friday. Because Friday, Lou Dort did something that if you are really into NBA Twitter, you know he has done before. But what he did to Nikola Jokic was so blatant, so egregious, and so dirty that the referees could not sit idly by and let that happen. Lou Dort clearly throws his leg and hip out to make contact with Nikola Jokic with the express purpose of tripping him. As some, I guess, retaliation, perhaps. At best, it's retaliation for Nikola Jokic earlier in the game. At worst, it's just Lou Dort being an absolutely dirty player. And I'll let you figure out where you stand on all of this. But the play itself was unnatural. And those unnatural actions are the things that get guys hurt. You know, we had these conversations in the NBA about, you know, why is this injury happening? Why is this injury happening? I think if you looked at a lot of what some may say are freak injuries that occur in the NBA, you will see the reason why they are called freak is because it is an unnatural. It's not somebody driving in for a layup. It's not somebody dunking the ball. It's not somebody grabbing a rebound. It's just somebody tripping over their own feet or somebody else, or, you know, crossing over wrong. But that type of play could have shredded Nikola Jokic's knee. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I've seen it before. And that's why Nikola Jokic rightly responded the way that he did. It was cheap, it was petty, it was dirty, and it was cowardly for Lou Dort to do that. I mean, really think about it. Who does that? Who just kind of sticks their leg out? Well, I tripped you. Who does that? You'd have more respect for the guy if he just turned around and slugged Nikola Jokic in the face as he walked by. But he just stuck his leg out to trip him. Like, that is one of the... That resides just over spitting on a guy. Like, that shows a complete lack of respect as a competitor, what Lou Dort did. And after the game, Nikola Jokic tried. He tried to give the political answer. He tried to not stoke the flames. But in the end, he just couldn't keep from saying the thing that we were all thinking, not just about Lou Dort, but about the Oklahoma City Thunder in general.
It is what it is, I'm not going to comment. It's unnecessary move and unnecessary reaction. There is no such a thing. I think they're not supposed to be those things on a basketball floor. So it was just an unnecessary move and unnecessary reaction by me. We know they are cheapy, they are handy, they are a little bit on the edge, but I think we responded well.
Cheap. Did you catch that? Cheap. They are cheap. And with all due respect to Nikola Jokic, that doesn't mean they're on the edge. That means they're over it. When you label a team as cheap, that means they repeatedly cross the line, which OKC absolutely does. And Lou Dort is the number one offender. And the rest of the NBA world is starting to recognize what this team is, quite frankly, all about. And it's not a great thing to be all about, if we're being honest. But it is who OKC is. And the worst part, to add perhaps insult to near injury, is the fact that their head coach, Mark Dagnall, not only endorses this behavior, but he tries to turn it around and make the Thunder the victims in all of this. Get a load of this guy.
If you were watching the game, I think you could see very clearly, very early, that was a chippy game. These are two teams that played each other in a 7-game series. We're in the same division. We've played each other 100 times. They know our playbook. We know their playbook. It's just what it is. Like I said, it's going to be an imperfect game. And things get, they escalate like that sometimes. I know Lou, I know Jokic, I know Jay Will. I don't think anybody's trying to hurt anybody. They're just great competitors. And, that's what I said. I thought it just boiled over. I think it was nothing more than that. I will say this. If Jay Will is running up the floor and gets tripped, we expect a flagrant 2 from this point forward. That's
listen to this
if that's
guy.
The precedent, if that becomes a malicious play and flagrant 2 is the line in the sand on that, we would expect that if it's Jay Will. We would expect that if it's anybody. And if that's the case, we're good.
The cojones on this guy. Seriously. To not only, first of all, there's nothing competitive about what Lou Dort did to Nikola Jokic. That's not a competitor. That's a cheap shot artist. That's a clown. But to midway through that clip, turn it into woe is us, the last team that should be crying foul over what another team gets away with, or what is called on them, is the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is. And look, I expect Mark Dagnall to have Lou Dort's back. But to flip it into we are being unfairly punished is delusional, entitled behavior. But what do you expect? What do you expect from the organization that went and tattled to the league about what Utah was doing as far as tanking? This team, since they have risen into the national consciousness, has done nothing but point the finger at other people for doing the things that they themselves have done. This team only exists because of tanking. And I don't want to give zero credit, because not everybody was saying that SGA was going to be arguably the best player in the league. But OKC tanked to get much of their roster. And they were a clearinghouse for bad contracts so they could pick up extra picks. This team did not care about winning. And they have the gall to go to Adam Silver and say, look at what Utah is doing. But getting back to the Denver Nuggets, they're the last team that should be saying, oh, hey, we want that call. Well, of course you want that call. But you get all the other calls. Why do you also have to have this one? Because they're entitled. I would say The lack of self-awareness from the Oklahoma City Thunder is astounding. But it's not lack of self-awareness. They know dang well what they are doing. They have excellent self-awareness. They just don't share it with you. They just want to play the victim, play ignorant. You know, it's the cheating man or woman in a relationship that is constantly accusing their partner of cheating and tries to justify their own transgressions. That's what OKC is. Other teams are doing bad things. But you're the worst offender. Yeah, but they're doing it though. And we're justified in doing it. We're the scrappy underdog. Not anymore. You're the biggest villain. You're the most unlikable team in the NBA. And you made the biggest move from plucky underdog to champion to now the biggest villain in the league in record time. So kudos to you, Oklahoma City Thunder. This kind of behavior cannot be tolerated. And David Adelman is not. What set him off was not after the game. It was after he saw what Mark Dagno said. This is David Adelman before yesterday's game against Minnesota.
I guess it wasn't that big of a deal from their standpoint. How they looked at it is ridiculous. That was malicious. It was a cheap shot. Lou Dort's a great player. And that's not what I've seen him do before. But at some point, you have to stand up for yourself, and the team does as well. So they're a great team. But that game was what it was.
Jokic had every right to go at them after that, and the look he had on his face will live in Nuggets lore forever. It will be a meme. It will be constantly called back. Nikola Jokic looked like he wanted to kill someone. And you're reminded he's not that much different than his brothers. Strahinja and Nemanja, his brothers, everyone looks at them like they're the big and bad ones. Maybe they're a little off kilter. Jokic isn't that different than those guys. He has to walk a tightrope because there's a team counting on him. He cannot act perhaps the way he always wants to act. But trust me, these three guys are three peas in a pod. It's not Jokic, and then he's got these two crazy brothers. And you saw that in Nikola Jokic's face. He had every right to do that. And Jalen Williams is lucky that all Nikola Jokic did was grab him. That good on Jokic, bad on the Thunder. That is behavior unbecoming a champion. And if that's how they feel they have to play in order to win games, then they weren't worthy champions in the first place. But I'm glad we're all on the same page now. We can move forward as a collective NBA community, understanding what they are and pointing the Thunder out for what they are. Immensely talented, but they go over the edge routinely. 719-24/7-1313. I'll take your thoughts on the Dort trip. I thought the Nuggets did a great job on Saturday. They came out, thanks to Nikola Jokic, with the exact right tone. Unfortunately, it was not enough. So where the Nuggets go from here, that's next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Think you have the luck of the Irish? Enter to win our pot full of cash. So this will be a St. Paddy's Day you'll never forget with $5,000 in our Luck of the Irish giveaway. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter this national contest sponsored locally by Bullseye Plumbing, Heating, and Air. No luck needed when Bullseye's on target. Breaking news from the Denver Nuggets as Shams Charania is reporting that the Nuggets have signed guard Tyus Jones to fill their last roster spot. A lot of talk about Chris Middleton, who decided to stay with the Dallas Mavericks. Clearly, that guy prioritizes winning above all other things. And Lonzo Ball was on the board. The Nuggets went with Tyus Jones, who Ray Dominguez, producer extraordinaire. What's his career stats on that? Or this year? What were you telling me earlier?
It was 3.1 points for this year. 3.1 points, I believe 4.8 assists, and I don't remember the rest of the stats.
Okay.
I have to look it up.
It's okay. I think we get it.
You get the point.
We get the picture here. And most importantly, it's just another guy to add to the rotation that David Adelman won't trust. More on that in a little bit. I want to stick with fallout from the OKC game, if you'll indulge me here. Before the Lou Dort stuff, let's back up a bit. Early in the game, I fully understand what Nikola Jokic was doing. What happened with Dort, that's a whole nother issue entirely. But early in the game, Nikola Jokic wanted to set a tone. He knocks down Isaiah Hartenstein going through a screen and ends up giving a little bit of a forearm bump to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And what Nikola Jokic was trying to do is send a message that the Nuggets will not be bullied. If you've noticed over the last couple of years, there's starting to be a little bit of a reputation that you can push around the Denver Nuggets, right? And I go back, it all stems from the series with Minnesota. A couple years ago in the playoffs. That's really where other teams went, okay, let's do this to them too. But you've seen it. The Nuggets have had their struggles with OKC. They've had their struggles with Detroit this year, another team that gets a little handsy. Nikola Jokic was trying to send a message that the Denver Nuggets cannot be pushed around. And it's that old line of how do you deal with a bully? Right? You punch him in the mouth. I don't know if that's still acceptable advice these days, but that's kind of the old adage about a schoolyard bully. Because chances are they're not going to push back. That they can't take it as well as they dish it out. And what you saw for the rest of the OKC game was a team that cannot handle that. Right? Not just the Lou Dort trip, although that's the biggest embodiment of what I'm talking about. But after Jokic bumped Shai with a forearm, that the referees deemed was not excessive in nature. And Shai immediately threw the ball at him. I mean, you want to talk about schoolyard behavior. Shai threw the ball at him because he gave him a bump with his forearm. Clearly, OKC can dish it out, but I don't know if they can take it. And it's part of the reason why more and more people are buying into San Antonio. Even though they are very young and inexperienced, They look at the matchups, and San Antonio gives it to OKC like OKC dishes it out to other teams. And it bothers OKC. They can't handle it. That's what Nikola Jokic was trying to do. In fact, just not to digress too far, but I happened on the way home to be listening to the OKC Thunder broadcast, the radio broadcast. And when Nikola Jokic did that, you thought he committed assault. Their radio guy was apoplectic. I mean, he was going off like Nikola Jokic is a menace to society and should be behind bars. He was losing his mind, which furthers my point. OKC is used to pushing everybody around. God forbid somebody pushes them back. I mean, he was calling the game as if he didn't call 82 games of the Thunder. Like, this behavior is so foreign. But it just shows that OKC cannot get back what they do to other teams. They can't. And that's what San Antonio has done, and that's what the Nuggets were trying to do. What Jokic was trying to do. It was the right tone for Jokic to set. And had the Denver Nuggets won that game, it would have cemented a wide-held belief that Denver is the best team in the West, that they can beat OKC in a 7-game series. They would be what people are trying to make San Antonio. Because we all want to find who's going to knock off the reigning champions, right? And everyone's flocking to San Antonio. But if all they would need is the Nuggets to win a game like Friday, with the way that Jokic came out to set the tone, and people, those same people who are saying, I don't care how young San Antonio is, they can beat OKC in a 7-game series, they would flock to the Denver Nuggets. Because that's a team also with championship DNA, also with the best player in the world, also with another all-star in Jamal Murray. They're just dying to go to the Nuggets and proclaim, yes, the Nuggets are the team to beat. They will knock off OKC in the spring. But the Nuggets didn't win that game. And so we have basically the opposite reaction. Because instead of the Nuggets setting the tone with Jokic and carrying it through to a great road win, it was those clutch time issues once again. Turnovers, missed shots, horrendous defense that allowed OKC to get the game to overtime. And even then, you're like, okay, it's all right, a little disappointing if you're a Nuggets fan that it went to overtime, but you know what? OT, and especially when you had the thought that Shea wasn't going to play at all. And ESPN talked about it right as they came back from break with Shea on the bench, that Mark Daigneault said before the game that he wasn't going to push Shea in his return. So once you realize that Shea wasn't going to be in at any point in overtime, it was even more a situation where the Nuggets had to win that game. Had to find a way. And the fact that they didn't is a huge blow to morale, both with the fan base and also with the team. They had to finish that game off. And the residual effect was Sunday's game against Minnesota. Don't tell me that wasn't a hangover from the OKC game, what you watched yesterday. And as David Adelman explained, yesterday was a little bit more about blaming the Nuggets than giving credit to the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I really thought it was us, not them. And it's just something we have to learn from. I have to find a unit that'll actually do it, compete at a higher level, because to me, that was the game. Then I had to extend minutes. and I'm playing guys into the ground that I can't do that, especially with the way the schedule's been very dense and we go into another back-to-back. So
we have gone from the Denver Nuggets having more depth than they have at any time in their franchise's history to David Adelman can't cobble two lineups together on a nightly basis. And I know what you're going to say, injuries. Yeah, they're missing Aaron Gordon. Yes, they're missing Peyton Watson. Those are absolutely important pieces to the puzzle, no doubt about it. But that's two. In the grand scheme of things, watching the Denver Nuggets this year, this is about as healthy as they've been for quite a while. And David Adelman can't do anything other than Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray two-man game. That's it. He can't trust anybody else on the floor right now. The rest of the starters, in addition to the bench. How did we get here? Tim Hardaway cannot be trusted with the basketball in his hands late in basketball games. Some of his turnovers have been horrendous. And he had two more against OKC. Jonas Valanciunas is playing less than 10 minutes a game in the two of the most important games of the season. OKC and Minnesota, Jonas Valanciunas plays a combined 18 minutes. And Cam Johnson, that is a whole different thing. Cam Johnson right now, and I appreciate his candor, and you feel for the guy. 100% you feel for the guy. But he is an absolute head case right now. He is in his own head. He is in his own way, and he's got to figure it out. He just has to. It's not that no one around here isn't pulling for him. All Nuggets fans are pulling for him. But he is in his own head right now. And he becomes another player that David Adelman just simply cannot trust with the game on the line. And we've settled into this pattern where if the Nuggets can rout a team like Boston last week, cool. They still have that in them. But man, if everything doesn't go according to plan and they don't have a team put away by the fourth quarter, buckle up because it's going to be a bumpy ride. And I'll give credit where credit's due. Ray Dominguez texts me this. Nuggets in clutch time or crunch time is like the Avs power play. It is beyond comprehension how a team that has championship DNA, that has two of the three spots on the floor spoken for with not just all-stars, but one of them being the best player in the world. Two of the five spots on the floor are accounted for. They can't find three other guys to put with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And that's putting them with Nikola Jokic, who I don't think is 100%, not even close. But it does confound the mind that a team that has won a championship, and many of the players that are on this team did win a title or have had success in other places. Cam Johnson played in the NBA Finals. Christian Brown was on the Nuggets championship team. Bruce Brown was on the Nuggets championship team. Tim Hardaway has played for the NBA's ultimate prize. And these are the guys that are losing their minds at the end of a basketball game? This is a bigger crisis with the Denver Nuggets than the injuries are or ever were, to be quite honest, because this is a crisis of confidence that is going on right now with the Denver Nuggets. And Sunday's game against Minnesota was born out of the fact that they could not close out OKC, that in many ways they did everything right, everything that they needed to do to send a message to OKC, we got you. All that crap that you pull, you can't pull it anymore. We're going to push you back. but you got to finish the job. You got to win, especially when the reigning MVP is sitting for the entire overtime period. I don't care if that game's in Denver, OKC, or the Moon. You got to win that game when SGA is not in there. This is a problem. And I don't know if Aaron Gordon's going to fix all of this. I'll get more into that later. 719-247-1313. Our question, quite simply, do you believe that the Nuggets can win a title? A little bit of a well check if you're a Denver Nuggets fan today. That's what we're doing. Coming up next on the show, a coach that is not lacking for confidence in his team, nor should he, is Frank Serratori. Big weekend for his Falcons. We'll talk about it next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. I suppose at the end of the day, the Air Force hockey team is glad that the season is, let me make sure I get the correct number of games here, that their regular season is 34 games and not 32. Because this team, if you would have ended the regular season after not this past weekend, but the weekend before it, I don't know how you would be feeling about the Falcons. Right? Because they were coming off of losing to their rival in Army, also a team that is down the pecking order in the Atlantic hockey standings. It seemed like the team hit a little bit of a speed bump from where they were like 3 or 4 weeks ago, which looked like the arrow was pointing straight up. But they played 2 more games. And they played those 2 games at the best team in their conference. And they beat them twice. 3-2 and 2-0. They beat Bentley on the road this past weekend as the last piece of business before the playoffs start. You want to talk about, Nikola Jokic trying to send a message to OKC? That's how you send a message if you're Air Force going into the Atlantic Hockey Tournament. Yeah, we're going to go into the best team in the league's barn, a team that I think lost 4 times, and we're going to take both. And after the game, Frank Serratori said, basically, that effort will do. It will do this weekend and the next weekend and the weekend after that.
That's a winning championship playoff formula. And if we can continue to play like that, like we are going to, it's going to be hard for somebody to knock us out. It really is.
And Frank talked about it in his post-game comments to Jay Ritchie on the broadcast that you heard on Extra Sports 1300, is that they're not going to beat themselves. Tight checking, physical game, and wear you down until the third period. He called it the long game. Air Force is not a team that is built to come right out of the gate and blitz you and put 3 goals up on the board. They're just not that team. But the longer a game goes, the way that Air Force plays, the more they have the advantage. Because it's the way they play, but it's also the fact that they have Dominic Wasik in goal. And no matter what level of hockey that you consume, this time of year, hot goalies, they are a great thing to have. And Dominic Wasik is coming off of a shutout in his last, against, again, the best team in the conference in his last outing. How can you willingly bet against this team now? I'm not guaranteeing they're winning a conference title and going to NCAA tournament. But I'm saying they are that proverbial team you do not want to play. And it's funny, just a week ago, I don't know that the feeling was that strong. But you go into Bentley's barn, where they've been nearly unbeatable all year, and you beat them twice? Yeah, I don't think Robert Morris is loving the idea of the Falcons coming out to Pittsburgh this weekend. There's also something that stood out to me as I'm driving back from Fort Collins after the Air Force CSU game, and I'm listening to the last part of the game and then the post game, and the way Frank Serratori was talking after that game kind of struck me. Here's one of his comments that kind of, I was like, oh, I got to get that for the show on Monday. Take a listen.
We've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this for almost 50 years, and I don't remember. I'm not going to remember all the games, and I'm not going to remember all the series. But I'll remember this one. I'll take this one to my grave. This was very special. I'm honored to have been around and and played a small role in it. It's really cool.
For him to get that reflective, I think just speaks to the gratification he has felt coaching this particular team. And I've talked to Frank about this. And if you are a listener to his radio show every week on Extra Sports 1300, or you're an Air Force hockey fan, you know that it's one of Frank's subjects that he loves to talk about. Right? How college hockey has, for the better, it's a better product than it ever has been. But it is also has put Air Force and Army, for that matter, at in an even tougher position than they have been this whole time. Right? You have NIL, and it's not like it is in major college football, don't get me wrong, but guys are getting paid on these other teams. NIL exists even in Atlantic hockey. And the rules about now the CHL players from Canada being eligible to play college hockey, the deck is more stacked against a team like Air Force than it ever has been in the history of the program. And for Frank Serratori and his staff to continue to follow their same blueprint. I mean, would they do it differently if they could? I think to a man, Frank would tell you, yeah. If that was an option, if NIL was an option, if a Canadian player was an option, sure, Air Force would take part in it. But those aren't options. So they're left with the same way they've been doing it for years. And the fact that it has still yielded the same results, where Air Force has clicked in the second half of the season, they feel really good going into the conference tournament, and they're a team that very few in Atlantic hockey want to draw. That's where that reflection comes from, that this was maybe a taller mountain to climb than any that Frank Serratori in this program has climbed. And if they can finish the job, if they can make a deep run here, and he said in the postgame, their goal is to win the conference championship. If they do that, it's a remarkable story in college hockey. But that's what you're hearing from Frank Serratori, that this season, I think, was tougher than any that he's ever experienced, with how many things are going on right now in college hockey that just make it more difficult for Air Force to win. But yet they go into the best team in the league's barn and sweep a season series. More Drive Time Sports right after this. Welcome in. Glad to have you on this Monday, and shouts to those of you watching the show on our social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, X, or Instagram. You can watch the show at 740 KVOR or at Extra Sports 1300 while you're there. If I can ask for one more favor, I know you're already doing me a favor, but if I can ask for one more, like, subscribe, follow. And then if you leave a comment on the day's topics, I'll pay it back by reading it on air and displaying it on our screen. Technology, I tell you what. If you want to get in touch a more traditional way, the text and phone lines are wide open for you at 719-247-1313. Can we say that this is the worst weekend of Nuggets basketball all year? I know when Nikola Jokic got hurt in Miami, that was rough. That was a rough stretch of days, but the prognosis was not as bad as it could have been fairly quickly thereafter. Not saying it was all hunky-dory, but at least the Nuggets didn't get the worst possible news when Nikola Jokic stepped on Spencer Jones's foot. But losing to OKC, trying to do everything right by pushing the bully back, like Nikola Jokic did at the beginning of the game, for Lou Dort to trip Nikola Jokic like that, for SGA to not play in overtime and the Nuggets not be able to get the last laugh after all of that, for OKC to get that last laugh. That was a tough pill to swallow, and I think you saw the residual effect Sunday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that the Nuggets had beaten 3 times already this year, and they got beat pretty good. I don't care what the final score says. Minnesota was in control of that game. And I think OKC, in a way, beat the Nuggets twice this weekend. And it's getting to the point when you point out all the issues with the Denver Nuggets right now. It's getting to the point where Aaron Gordon's return is going to be more heralded, more celebrated than Gabriel Landeskog's return for the Colorado Avalanche. And we waited 3 years for Gabriel Landeskog to be back out on the ice, and it's pale in comparison to the rejoicing that Nuggets fans will do when Aaron Gordon is back on the court. And they miss him dearly. Do not get me wrong. And the absence makes the heart grow fonder. I mean, if you didn't love Aaron Gordon already, you are madly in love with him as a basketball player now because they miss him. But it's getting to the point where I don't know that Aaron Gordon makes everything right again. And it's a sentiment that I held on to for a little while, but it's a sentiment now that I'm hearing from the Denver Nuggets that I don't know if all is going to be right with the world when they get Aaron Gordon back. Here's Jamal Murray with his level of frustration after especially Sunday's loss to Minnesota.
Yeah, for sure. It's frustrating. It's uncharacteristic. But it's okay. It's okay. Once we get healthy and figure it out and kind of get back to base of who's out there and stuff like that, we'll be fine. But yeah, it's been a tough year. It's been tough just kind of closing the games and playing through different coverages and making shots, especially, and getting the stops when we need it. So we'll be good. We'll be good. I'm excited for what's in store for us.
And I don't expect anything different from Jamal Murray putting on the brave face, saying we'll be all right. But let's first talk the injury thing, because I've been mentioning this over the last few weeks periodically. At what point do you come to the realization that the Nuggets are never going to be fully healthy? That they're never going to have everybody? Haven't we gotten past that point? I mean, it's with the injury thing, it's feeling like the year that we were all hanging on, waiting for Jamal Murray to come back. It was the year after he tore his ACL, right? And we were playing this wait and see game around, it started in this month. It started in March, where we were on this constant Jamal watch. Is he coming back? Is he not? He's out on the court doing this, doing that. And we kept waiting, and we said, as long as once they get Jamal Murray back, they'll be good. And then they never got him back. Not that year. You had to wait a year till Jamal Murray was back, and we know what happened that next year. So our thought a year prior was correct. If Jamal Murray is right and plays, maybe the Nuggets win a title a year sooner. But what if that day is not coming this year? The day where Peyton Watson, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, Murray, all of these guys are all together, all this depth that Ben Tenzer and John Wallace put together, it's all there, it's all intact, and the Nuggets are ready to go. You have to start doubting that day's ever going to come. Because Aaron Gordon's out and Peyton Watson's out, and they may be close to returning. But watch Nikola Jokic. He's not healthy. He's not healthy right now, and he's being impacted by the knee and the wrist. And he's just going to keep on playing through it. And who could blame him? Like, I mean, it's already been rough enough with him back out on the floor because Aaron Gordon's been out. Can you imagine if both Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic are out? So he's fighting through it, and I give him credit. And look, his whatever percentage he's at, 70, 75, 60, whatever it is, that's better than, 80% of the league at 100%. You wouldn't know he's hurt looking at the box score or watching a game if you were not familiar, but you and I know better. We see Jokic when he's healthy and at his best, and that hasn't been him recently. So are the Nuggets ever going to be healthy in the way that they need to be in order to win a title? I think there's some serious doubt starting to creep in on that. But let's just say that health is taken care of. Is Aaron Gordon fixing all of the Nuggets' ills? I don't know that he is. I don't know that just simply getting Aaron Gordon back, and Peyton Watson for that matter, is going to make the Nuggets right. I don't think what the Nuggets are missing in Aaron Gordon is everything that's wrong with them right now. I mean, do you think that Aaron Gordon comes back and the Nuggets can... I mean, let's just list the maladies right now with the Denver Nuggets. Defense, okay. Aaron Gordon helps immensely. Does Aaron Gordon help all the turnovers? Does Aaron Gordon help the Nuggets hit clutch shots? I mean, it's getting to the point where Aaron Gordon has to fix. Is Aaron Gordon going to give Cam Johnson his confidence back? There are just so many things that are popping up right now. Jokic's health is not going to be fixed with Aaron Gordon returning. Aaron Gordon is not going to always have the ball in his hands late in a game. Sometimes it will end up in Tim Hardaway's hands. It will end up in Christian Brown's hands, Cam Johnson's hands. The point is you're supposed to be able to trust these other guys. Aaron Gordon is supposed to tie everything together. But there are players that are going to be on the floor with Aaron Gordon that right now David Adelman can't trust. And it's just getting to a point for me to where too much is being put on Aaron Gordon's return. Beyond the question, the obvious question, which is Aaron Gordon comes back, 3 days from now, 5 days from now, comes back for the rematch with OKC a week from today. Are we not going to talk about Aaron Gordon suffering an injury between now and the NBA Finals? So that's the obvious question that hangs over all of this. Aaron Gordon comes back, but for how long? Because you love everything about Aaron Gordon as a basketball player. The one thing that is not his fault, but that you don't love about Aaron Gordon is recently he hasn't been consistently available. And again, I'm not knocking him whatsoever. The guy played on one leg, risked his career to try and help the Denver Nuggets beat OKC. So I am not disparaging Aaron Gordon one iota. I'm just pointing out the obvious. And Aaron Gordon on one leg, the Denver Nuggets did not beat OKC. I just don't. I'm starting to get to the point where Aaron Gordon cannot fix everything. And there's going to have to be some heavy lifting from the other players and David Adelman to get this right. I'm not completely out on the idea of the Denver Nuggets being able to win a title, but I just don't think everything is right when Aaron Gordon comes back. More has to be done. Other people have to do, like David Adelman. And I said this right before the Boston game. I said this is the next big test for David Adelman as a head coach. His first one was navigating that month, 3 weeks without Nikola Jokic, and he did a brilliant job. But this was the next thing. Right? Because you saw Nikola Jokic come back, and he hasn't really come back. He doesn't look like he did at the beginning of the season. And now you have Aaron Gordon out. And now you have these issues in crunch time. And David Adelman challenged the team a little bit before that Boston game. He said, look at the standings, play with some urgency. And for that one game against Boston, they absolutely did. They absolutely answered the bell. And it's performances like that that keep you hanging on if you're a Nuggets fan. You're like, that team is still in there. The team that was a wagon at the beginning of the season, the team that looked like world beaters, they're still in there. It gets you hanging on, but what has happened immediately after that? Two of the more demoralizing losses the Nuggets have sustained all year. And a myriad of issues. That is all being put on one player's return. And as much as valuable as Aaron Gordon is, and as much right as he does, he's not the Nuggets' best player. He's not the Nuggets' first or second best player. Is there too much being put on Aaron Gordon's return? Or is there more wrong with this team at the current moment in time that even getting Aaron Gordon back doesn't totally fix? I'm in the latter category. Not saying the Nuggets can't do it, but it's for them to get themselves right, it's going to take more than just getting Aaron Gordon back. That much I do know. I'll take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, one thing that I mentioned that I don't know that Aaron Gordon fixes is the headspace that Cam Johnson is in right now. You'll hear from Johnson candor, honesty about where he is right now. And the obvious question, can he make his way out of it? That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. 719-247-1313 if you want to jump in on the Nuggets conversation. We just came off of the Winter Olympics, and one of the themes of the Olympics was how open the athletes that competed were in terms of the struggles that they are going through. And there's been a lot of discussion about this being a different generation of athlete than the Mamba mentality, right? So many, the generation right before it, the a little bit older athletes, a lot of them idolize Kobe Bryant and that mentality, which is, encompassed by who was the player that faked like he was going to throw it off of Kobe's face. And Kobe just stood there like that stoic, nothing is getting to me type of mentality. And I think it's valuable, but it doesn't work for everybody. Some people want to share. Some people want not to get sympathy, but they want someone to hear them and be able to say what's on their mind. And that was one of the big, Michaela Schifrin was the number one athlete that did this. Did a wide-ranging conversation after the Olympics about what headspace she was in and any doubt that was creeping into her head. And she was universally praised, rightly so, for it. Right, man, if, the most decorated skier in the history of the world is saying that she deals with self-doubt, she deals with, some demons out there as she's trying to compete, then if I'm a, college athlete, high school athlete, then I look up to her, man, it's okay for me to go through those things. Showing the human side of sports. And Cam Johnson is a little bit inclined to be that kind of an athlete. He is hosting a podcast now, so he is, giving his thoughts on a daily basis. And after the Minnesota game on Sunday, he was very honest with where he's at right now as he struggled again. He didn't score a point against Minnesota. Here was Cam Johnson reflecting in the locker room postgame. And you hear how emotional he's getting, and the imagery of not being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, that's tough to hear someone who's in that headspace. And look, at the end of the day, he's playing sports. I get that, but this is his life, and this is something that he loves. And right now, he is fighting it. And I'll say this, the next home game that the Nuggets play, there will not be a player that would get a bigger ovation unless Aaron Gordon happens to come back the next home game. There won't be a bigger ovation for any Nuggets player than for Cam Johnson. This fan base, most of this fan base is going to rally around this guy. As they should. I mean, that honesty becoming more prevalent over the last few weeks because of the Olympians, but it is refreshing. And there are a lot of Nuggets fans who are going to cheer as loud as they can for this guy. But it just underscores. I mean, this is a guy that has played in an NBA Finals. Okay, he's played on the biggest stage in his sport. This is not, being on a team with expectation is not new to Cam Johnson. Sure, he didn't have that in Brooklyn, but he had it in Phoenix. So that he knows what this is like. But you just once again see the role that he now occupies, that was occupied by Michael Porter, just how difficult of a role that is on this basketball team. It just is. And Cam Johnson, maybe before this, we'll see what the reaction is moving forward after these comments. I think Vic Lombardi tweeted out those comments as well, and they went a bit viral. I'd be curious to see the reaction to Cam Johnson and the conversation around him moving forward. But leading up to it, Ray and I were just talking about this during the break. You could just take out Cam Johnson and insert the name Michael Porter, and it was the same conversation. The exact same conversation that happened with Michael Porter Jr. the entire time he was in Denver. That box that he's confined to. Because you have such a high usage player in Nikola Jokic, and the next guy is Jamal Murray, and it's that two-man game. I got to imagine some of the Jazz players back in the day with Karl Malone and John Stockton felt like, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to do here? Because we just hammered this two-man game, this pick and roll over and over and over again. What is it that I am supposed to do? And those Jazz players figured it out, right? They went to multiple NBA finals. But I got to imagine it's very difficult. At times, it's a difficulty that you want to bring on. In some ways, it might be a nice problem to have, but there's still difficulty in trying to figure out your place in all of this. And Cam Johnson missed some significant time. So it's not like he's on the same track everybody else is in terms of where they're supposed to be at this stage of the season. He's behind that curve, and he's playing with less freedom than maybe he ever has in his career. And he's clearly having trouble figuring it out. And I saw some, if you're unfamiliar, Eddie Johnson, who's a member of the Suns broadcast team, and think back to a few years ago, the feelings that existed between the Suns and the Denver Nuggets. Remember Suns and 4 guy, that whole thing? Well, Eddie Johnson is, and I like Eddie a lot. I listen to him, his show and stuff, but he has this thing with Nikola Jokic that I can't quite comprehend. Because, well, I'll give you the tweet. So he quote tweets Vic Lombardi and says, "Not shocked at the struggle. Everyone thinks it's easy playing with the superstar that needs to touch notice he says needs to touch the ball on every possession. Just look at what they had in MP Jr. on another team. They got on him for struggling." And a lot of what Eddie Johnson is saying is true. I just said it. But Eddie Johnson takes it to another level. He looks at playing with Nikola Jokic as only a negative. He has chosen this place, and I can't totally begrudge him. We all try to, once in a while, not just fit in line with everybody and try to have a different take on things. But he stands as such an outlier that playing with the best passer in the history of the NBA, the best player in the league currently, a 3-time MVP, all of this kind of stuff is bad. This is bad playing with Nikola Jokic. That's where he said he needs to have the ball. No, he doesn't need to have the ball. If you ran a team with Nikola Jokic, you put the ball in his hands every dang time down the court too. Like, what are we doing here? And by the way, this is not playing with Michael or Kobe, who I admire both of them greatly for them as basketball players. They were ball hogs. Like, let's just call it what it is. That's part of the reason why when Jordan passed it to John Paxson or Steve Kerr, it was this mind-blowing moment because Michael Jordan gave the ball up. Like, let's call it for what it is. Playing with MJ and Kobe is difficult. Playing with Nikola Jokic can have its difficulties, but come on, there's another degree here. Nikola Jokic wants to share the ball. Nikola Jokic would not like nothing better than to be able to give Cam Johnson the ball exactly where he wants it and let Cam Johnson make the game-winning bucket, put up 30 points. Nikola Jokic would like nothing better. With a Kobe or a Michael, you question whether they were so completely okay with somebody else getting the shine that night. Like, again, all due respect, Michael Jordan's the GOAT, but there were issues with Michael and some of his teammates. Scottie Pippen comes immediately to mind. Kobe and Shaq. They were two guys during their playing career that were not always amenable to other players being the star that night. Nikola Jokic is so not that way. Now, the difficulties of being, really, it's the difficulties of being the fourth guy on a team like this. That is the issue. It's being the fourth guy. If Cam Johnson was the second best player on the Denver Nuggets and running that two-man game with Nikola Jokic, Cam Johnson would be good. Right? We wouldn't have these issues. And I've always said Nikola Jokic is like the sun. The closer you play to him, the better off you're going to be. The hotter you will be, right? Your temperature is going to be up a little bit. But if you're standing in the corner, like where Michael Porter was, you couldn't be further away from Nikola Jokic. You're Pluto on the floor with Nikola Jokic. You're as far away as you can be. And that's kind of what Cam Johnson is. That is a difficult place to play. It's not that Nikola Jokic is on the floor. It's that Nikola Jokic is option one. Jamal Murray is option two. When he's healthy, Aaron Gordon is option three. And a lot of times, Christian Brown is battling with Cam Johnson even to be option four. So that whole dynamic with the Denver Nuggets, I said it the entire time Michael Porter was in Denver. People needed to give Michael Porter more credit, and they need to give Cam Johnson more credit. And now that Cam Johnson is struggling in the same role, I think people can appreciate a little bit more what Michael Porter Jr. had to go through. So that part of what Eddie Johnson is tweeting, I agree with. But let's not turn this into playing with Nikola Jokic as a career killer, or that guys don't benefit by playing with Nikola Jokic. That's nonsense. Okay, Cam Johnson, if Cam Johnson's going to figure this thing out, he'll be justly rewarded. But it's a difficult role that he's in. And he has to push through. It's one of these things that I talked about at the top of the hour that Aaron Gordon cannot fix. If anything, Aaron Gordon makes it worse. Because Aaron Gordon's more of an option than Cam Johnson is. I hope he's able to work through this. I think a lot of Nuggets fans understand what Cam Johnson is dealing with, and they will support him. And I think his teammates are going to support him as well. So I think everybody hopes Cam Johnson is able to kind of figure out his role, although it took a while for Michael Porter, didn't it? But here's the bottom line in all this. Just like with Porter, Cam Johnson's got figured out. He's got to figure it out. Or else you can't say that the Denver Nuggets, at the very least, are better built to win a title than they were 2 years ago. 3 years ago. However long it's been. Right? 719-247-1313. Coming up next, one guy that would have looked pretty good in a Broncos uniform is going elsewhere. And the reported asking price for A.J. Brown is out. Are you willing to pay it to bring A.J. Brown to Denver? That is next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Think you have the luck of the Irish? Enter to win our pot full of cash. So this will be a St. Paddy's Day you'll never forget with $5,000 in our Luck of the Irish giveaway. Just head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com, your choice, to enter this national contest sponsored locally by Bullseye Plumbing, Heating, and Air. No luck needed when Bullseye's on target. Is it fair to say that we've had our first noteworthy move of the NFL offseason today? I think so. As the Lions, as they are getting ready to give Jahmyr Gibbs a ton of money, have offloaded David Montgomery. I forget, is he Sonic? He's Sonic, and Jahmyr Gibbs is Knuckles. My son, who's a big fan of Sonic, will be very disappointed to hear that Sonic and Knuckles have broken up in Detroit. But he's being traded to the Houston Texans. And in return, the Lions are going to get a 4th-round pick. Juice Scruggs, got to be one of the best names in the NFL, and a 7th-round pick. If you're the Denver Broncos, do you do that deal? I don't know that I do. It doesn't seem like much. It is a salary dump, is what it is, because they're getting ready to pay Jahmyr Gibbs. But I guess it just depends on whether you think. I don't think David Montgomery is the answer to, if not J.K. Dobbins, then who? I think David Montgomery would be a fit for the Broncos if you're kind of out on R.J. Harvey. I don't know that I see a backfield with David Montgomery and R.J. Harvey quite working to the level it needs to for the Denver Broncos this year. But for the Houston Texans, who, man, they went through, all these, guys that the island of misfit toys in that running back room, right? They had Joe Mixon for a time. They tried to add Nick Chubb. Now it's David Montgomery, who's being cast off by the Detroit Lions. I'm not saying it's a bad move for Houston, but I don't know if that's the guy that the Broncos are looking for. Now, the guy that I continue to say the Broncos should be looking for is A.J. Brown. Different position. But I think with A.J. Brown, before I get into the reporting around him, is just, I think the Broncos are in a position this offseason where if you don't look at a player, like I just did with David Montgomery, if you don't look at a player like David Montgomery or A.J. Brown or whoever it might be and go, yes, probably not worth it. Right? You have a good football team already, and you like most of your parts a certain amount. Right? If you don't look at David Montgomery and go, yes, then I don't think it's worth exploring. A.J. Brown, I go, yes. That's what type of player A.J. Brown can be for the Denver Broncos. Now, Albert Breer is reporting that Howie Roseman is playing a little bit of hardball. The reported asking price for inquiring teams is 2 picks within the top 100 of this draft. And one of them has to be in the first round. And I've heard some other rumblings that they want a receiver in return. So the asking price right now is quite steep. But they're not in a situation like in Philadelphia's world, A.J. Brown is their Jahmyr Gibbs. Not in terms of importance. I'm just saying, like, that's all. They already gave that guy his money. So they don't have to dump A.J. Brown because of salary reasons. But I think there is a reason to dump him. But because their salary cap is such, they can play hardball a little bit here. And this is what they're doing. No one is paying that. No one's giving Philadelphia 2 picks in the top 100, including their first round pick, and maybe a talented young receiver to get a guy who can't stand the sight of his quarterback. Like, we're not doing that. Nobody's doing that. The question is, how far will they come down in their asking price? Because if I'm Denver, I take one piece of that and say, you can have this. You can have 1 pick in the top 100. You can have pick 60. Or we'll give you pick 74 in Troy Franklin. Like, we're not giving you all of that. But we could take pieces of what you're asking for. I think ultimately the question becomes, because I'm as much as I think that the Nuggets, we've been talking a lot of Nuggets today, that the Broncos should be one of the most pursuant teams, if you will. I think 2 picks in the top 100 is a lot for a guy that, again, has had it up to here with his quarterback who can't throw a forward pass. So I think that the Broncos or any team after A.J. Brown can look at Howie and go like, okay, dude, like, what's the real price here? But I think ultimately the question becomes, would you give up number 30? I think the Broncos pick at number 30 is about the best that any team could offer A.J. Brown. For A.J. Brown. I think Howie Roseman takes pick 30 for A.J. Brown right now. And the question is, as a Broncos fan, would you do that? And as much as I am a proponent of the Denver Broncos trying to land A.J. Brown, I do one of these. I don't know that I would be willing to give up pick 30. I would say pick 60 and clear this log jam of a wide receiver room. You like Pat Bryant, you like Troy Franklin, take them. Take one of those pick. No, not Cortland Sutton, because that defeats the whole purpose here. The point is Cortland Sutton with somebody. Second round pick and either Troy Franklin or Pat Bryant, Howie Roseman, shake my hand right now. Say yes. 5, like Dwight Schrute. 5, 4, say yes now. 3, give it to me. 2, 1. That's where I would probably settle. I want to keep that first round pick if I'm Denver and see what I can do. Now, I think it's reasonable to say that no one they pick at 30 is going to be as good as A.J. Brown. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying you gotta. This is the negotiation, right? You got to kind of call out Howie Roseman a little bit here and say, "Come on, dude, no one's going to give you that." And are you that dead set on A.J. Brown returning to your team? with your weak power structure with Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, you really want to invite that back? Second round pick, Troy Franklin. Do it. Take it. Pat Bryant, you can run him over the middle. He can run 5-yard patterns, which fits in perfectly with what Jalen Hurts, the limit of Jalen Hurts' ability during the regular season. I think that the Broncos need to find a way to land this guy. I think the Justin Jefferson stuff is too pie in the sky. The right balance of not incredibly gettable, like he's not AJ. The Eagles, and I get this side of it from the Eagles. They're not just going to dump AJ Brown, okay? But at the nexus of the team that has him is motivated enough to move him, and the Broncos are motivated enough to make, or should be motivated enough to make a deal happen. I think at the nexus of that is AJ Brown and not Justin Jefferson. And I know, like, Mike Evans, I think is a bit redundant with Cortland Sutton, and you start going down the list and you're like, I mean, maybe for nothing we take the guy, but we'll see if the Broncos do this dance with Howie Roseman, because as everything I just said, I don't think that the Denver Broncos want him. I don't think that they do, because of how disruptive he's been in the locker room. Now, I feel like if you have a strong enough culture, you should be able. I mean, the Patriots got, I mean, say what you will about Stephon Diggs's off the field antics. On the field, he was ideal for New England. Right? The Broncos culture is not strong enough. Bo Nix is not that much better of a quarterback than Jalen Hurts, to where you don't think that A.J. Brown can be a little bit more content here. I think he can be. But I don't know that Sean Payton wants to mess with it. And if he doesn't, then my question, my counter proposal is, okay, well, how are you going to make this wide receiving room better? Because it's not with internal improvement. More Drive Time Sports after this. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on 740 KVOR, Extra Sports 1300, or on the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, which you can find in any store that you search for apps in. And you'll notice they are free to download and they are free at all times to use. It's kind of our superpower here in radio. We're free. And both of those apps are sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for All. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can. 719-247-1313. You could call or text in your thoughts. Guy getting past Ray, and he's like prime Dominic Hasek. He didn't let a lot go by, so... But that's who you got to answer to. But we'll get to your thoughts as this hour progresses, or perhaps you're waiting for something to evoke some emotion from you. Perhaps it will be one of these, the three stories that are driving the show. All right, story number one, everyone catching up to where we have been when it comes to the Oklahoma City Thunder for a while.
186th of his career, and then McCain on the other end scores. And Jokic hits the deck. He doesn't like it. Gets in the face of Dort. Jalen Williams comes in, and Jokic and Jalen Williams do battle. Now the coaches come in along with some teammates to break things up. Jokic and Jalen Williams face to face right now. This started early. Jokic and Gilgeous-Alexander got into it a little bit after the whistle about 4 minutes into the game. Gilgeous-Alexander was given a technical. Jokic was not. But there have been several times tonight officials have stopped in one.
That is ESPN on the call. Lou Dort, there's a lot there. But it started with Lou Dort tripping Nikola Jokic, that whole fracas that got Lou Dort ejected. For Lou Dort to throw his hip and leg out, specifically with the intent to trip another grown man, that is cowardice, that is cheap, and that is dirty. Yet it's kind of what OKC does. Not every minute of every game, but go on any social media platform and you will see plenty of compilations of Lou Dort doing this kind of crap. And it does show that OKC, they don't do well when a team tries to push them back, as the Denver Nuggets tried to do on Friday night. As you heard in the clip, Nikola Jokic getting into it a bit with Shea early in the game. This is why everyone's trying to make San Antonio the darling of the Western Conference, because San Antonio pushes OKC right back. And this is a team that has trouble dealing with a team that won't put up with their nonsense. And Nikola Jokic tried to set that tone on Friday night. And the idea that Mark Daigneault would turn the Thunder into the victims and say, well, if it's going to be, that's going to be a flagrant 2, then I just want it called both ways. You of all people asking for something to be called both ways, you are hilarious. Because we've all been saying that about your team. The stuff you constantly get away with on the defensive end. We would like you to get called properly for some of this stuff. for OKC to play the victim and Lou Dort to act like he did nothing wrong. I mean, the only thing, honestly, the only thing worse that I could imagine and lower than what Lou Dort did is if he just spit on Nikola Jokic as he walked by. Like, come on, dude. If you got a problem with Nikola Jokic, why don't you step to him? Push him. Get in his face. And yet, and the crazy thing about it was you heard the kerfuffle there. Who was the other name mentioned? Not Lou Dort. It was Jalen Williams. Lou Dort was nowhere to be found. I mean, that is just, that deserves zero respect, what Lou Dort did. And for the Thunder to play the victims, it's like, you have gone from this plucky underdog that has built themselves up the right way to the most hated team in the NBA in 18 months. I don't know how you did it. It's amazing. That never happens. We never get tired of a team in 18 months. But the Lou Dort thing that pushed it over the edge. Now, the consequence of the game is not what Lou Dort did. The consequences of the game is that at that point, the Denver Nuggets had to finish that game out. They had to. They had to win that game. You can't, like, credit to Nikola Jokic for getting in there and with the crazy eyes and letting him know that this stuff won't fly, but you got to win the game. That's how you stick it to OKC. That's what San Antonio has been doing. And the fact that Denver, once again, cannot close that game out, even with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sitting on the bench the entirety of overtime, that is a gut punch of a loss in a game you absolutely cannot lose. Because what you did up until that point was everything right. You did everything to push OKC back and say, no, this is a different year. You're not going to do this to us, and we're going to beat you. And it was the turnovers late in the game, the missed shots, and the defense, once again, that kept the Denver Nuggets from even finishing the game out against an OKC team that didn't even have Shai for overtime. Awful, awful loss for the Denver Nuggets. Demoralizing loss. To go through all of that and not be able to get the most important thing out of the night, which was a win. Which leads right into story number 2, because I think you could certainly chalk up the game against Minnesota as a OKC beating Denver twice. Here's Nikola Jokic.
I mean, we will see. We are not healthy probably the whole season, and we will see. Are we going to be healthy? Because it seems like every time something happens, but I think we are fighting. I think we were in the game in every game that we played since All-Star break. So, we will see. We can go out there and give our best and hope give our chance to win a game.
The thing about the Nuggets being healthy, the Denver Nuggets have dropped 2 extremely consequential basketball games over this weekend. And the most optimistic view is just wait till they get Aaron Gordon back. And the sense I get from Nikola Jokic is kind of what I've been sharing today. Are we sure that day's ever going to come? Are we sure that we're going to look at the Denver Nuggets at any point from now until the NBA Finals and say they are whole and they are healthy? I mean, we're how far into it? We're past the All-Star break. We're into March now, and the Nuggets aren't healthy and they're not whole. The weeks are dwindling here. It's reminding me of a few years ago when we all were waiting collectively for Jamal Murray to come back. If just Jamal Murray comes back, everything is right and we're good. Never came back. But even if Aaron Gordon does make his return, there are just so many issues popping up with this Nuggets team. I don't think Aaron Gordon fixes all of them. Fixes the defense. Perhaps you don't have to put the ball in Tim Hardaway's hands as much late in games. But right now, the Nuggets are suffering from a crisis of confidence. And I don't know that just getting Aaron Gordon back is going to fix that. Cam Johnson is distraught over the way he's played. Tim Hardaway Jr. has, in last couple of games, had the most egregious turnovers that I have ever seen in a basketball game. David Adelman can't cobble together two lineups that he trusts. He said it after the Minnesota game. He's having a hard time putting five guys on the floor that can help them win basketball games. In fact, that's the audio I should have played. Let me do that.
Yeah, he did.
No, not that one. This one.
I really thought it was us, not them. And it's just something we have to learn from. I have to find a unit that'll actually do it, compete at a higher level, because to me, that was the game. Then I had to extend minutes, and I'm playing guys into the ground that I can't do that, especially with the way the schedule's been very dense and we go into another back-to-back. So
David Adelman doesn't trust his team other than number 27 and number 15. That's a problem. And does Aaron Gordon fix that too? I think at least you can say that there is more wrong right now with the Denver Nuggets than what Aaron Gordon can fix. Aaron Gordon can help the Denver Nuggets out a lot. But there are other side things going on right now that Aaron Gordon can't. And there's more heavy lifting that has to be done. I put a lot of this on David Adelman. I do. I'm not saying it's his fault that all this is happening. But it's his job to fix it. You have a player in Cam Johnson that is getting incredibly emotional in the locker room. You have players that are just stumbling all over themselves late in basketball games. They can't make shots. They're turning the ball over. Like, this is welcome to being a full-time head coach, David Adelman. This is on you. You got to fix this. Getting Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson back is not going to do everything. I thought maybe the team responded to David Adelman for the Boston game, but it's become clear what is the issue. The Nuggets kind of have the yips in late in close games. And David Adelman's got to find a way, whether it's personnel changes, whether it's just, pep talks, calling guys out. That was him kind of calling his team out. He's got to find something. He's got to push the right buttons. And unfortunately, tonight is not a night where anyone's going to take anything away. The only place the Denver Nuggets can go for tonight is down, because they're playing Utah. Beating Utah means nothing. Losing to Utah means everything. Good luck, Denver Nuggets, tonight. Although Utah, you know what state they're in. You're not going to recognize a single player on the court for Utah. But you got to get this team right for Monday. That's what it's got to be. Between now and Monday, you got to figure it out. Because you go back into OKC, and that is going to be a highly A lot of people are going to be paying attention to that game, watching that game because of what happened with Lou Dort. You got to get this team right to be able to go into OKC a week from today and win. And if they don't, I might be out on this team winning a title. I don't want to end on a down note. Let's go to story number 3.
Back in. Now taken away by Air Force. Fell 2-on-1, going the other way, and a shot, save, rebound, put back, goal! Air Force takes a 1-0 lead. That is Will Dawson, second of the weekend.
Will Dawson had a huge weekend for the Falcons, who had a huge weekend as they save their best performances, arguably, of the season for last, as they go into Bentley, the team that was sitting atop Atlantic Hockey, and they beat them twice in their barn. 3-2 in that game that you just heard the clip from Will Dawson ended up 2-0. Jay Ritchie, by the way, on the call for Learfield, as heard on Extra Sports 1300. The last couple of weeks for Air Force haven't been great, and there would be a different feeling around this team going into the postseason if the season had ended 2 weekends ago, but it didn't. And Air Force going into Bentley and getting that win against that team. You heard Frank Serratori after the game. It gives this team true belief that they can beat anybody if they play that brand of hockey. Tight checking, physical, don't beat yourself, drag them into the deep water, and win games in the third period like they did this weekend. Completely changes the perspective around this team going into the Atlantic Hockey quarterfinals, which start on Friday. Air Force will be in Pittsburgh for a best-of-3 series with Robert Morris. Very excited to see what they do, because those are 2 big-time wins. 719-24-7. 1313 will continue with Drive Time Sports right after this on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Coming up on Friday, our extra sweet deal of the week from the good folks at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum goes on sale. And how about this? You could get a family membership, which is valued at $175 on sale for $87.50. I'm assuming that's half price. My math skills are not good enough to actually figure that out. And it also includes admission to over 300 museums around the country. So if, one, you can go in regularly and visit the museum we have in our backyard, but if you are someone that travels, you can check out a lot of other museums. So that's a neat added bonus there. So again, this Friday, 9 a.m., you could go to either extrasports1300.com or kvor.com and take advantage of our U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Museum suite deal of the week. Our question of the day is, can the Nuggets still win a championship, or just win a championship? I don't think we said still. We didn't want to lead anybody. Can the Denver Nuggets win a championship? Producer Ray Dominguez is here with your thoughts on Bookface.
So from Sean, healthy, yes, but got to be full strength. And then from Todd, only if Aaron Gordon gets back to 100%. Peyton Watson would help too. They need to be at least a top 4 seed.
And that brings up the other thing about all of this. And I'm not trying to lead anybody in any direction, but I'm just putting the facts out there. The road as of today through the postseason would be Minnesota without home court, followed by OKC, followed maybe by San Antonio. That is the path right now that lays in front of the Denver Nuggets. With me saying that, does that change your answer at all? That would be a less than ideal path through the postseason to get OKC in round 2 instead of in the Western Conference Final, and you would have to go through Minnesota without home court advantage. I think that's what Todd is speaking to when it comes to the home court. Got to be a top 4 seed. Now, I can easily chalk up yesterday to the OKC hangover from OKC. I still think that the Denver Nuggets, when they are right and healthy, will beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in a 7-game series. But again, we're talking championship or bust here. You got to go through Minnesota, then you got to go through OKC, and then you got to maybe go through the darlings of the NBA this year, the San Antonio Spurs, just to get to the finals. And maybe on the other side, you would have Jason Tatum in the Boston Celtics waiting for you.
And that's possibly OKC coming off a bye. You know what I'm saying? They'll get a first-round bye. You'll get Minnesota, which most likely will go 7 games.
First-round bye because they'd be playing a play-in team.
Oh, right. Yeah, they don't have first-round buys. But I was thinking that.
I thought you were being disparaging to Phoenix or
well, I mean,
LA
yeah. So basically, first-round bye.
Right.
And then you go to OKC after playing a tough Minnesota team.
It's not ideal. I'd actually argue that the best place for the Denver Nuggets to be is a top 3 seed.
Yeah.
Rather than a top 4 seed, and certainly top 5 seed. But yeah, Aaron Gordon absolutely helps, cures most of what ails the Denver Nuggets. Most. My point today is that I see more wrong with this team at this moment in time than what Aaron Gordon fixes. And that's going to require some heavy lifting on the part of David Adelman and the players themselves, quite honestly, to battle through this, Cam Johnson being chief among them.
Yeah, because it's not good when you're starting 5 right now 2 of the 5 can shoot, and the rest are struggling.
Isn't it just wild that we're here though?
Yeah.
That we were talking about all the depth that the Denver Nuggets had, and Tim Hardaway Jr., 6th man of the year, and Jonas Valanciunas has been a gift from above, and now Jonas is playing 9 minutes a game, and Tim Hardaway's turned the ball over multiple times in crunch time, and I mean they're healthier than they've been in long stretches of this season, and it's not working, and that's why I say it's a crisis of confidence right now with this Denver Nuggets team, and the guy that is the most responsible outside of the players themselves is David Adelman, to try and find a way to instill that confidence in them so they can get right when Aaron Gordon does return.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, me included, Michael Malone, did it get stale a little bit towards the end? Yes. But I do miss the fire you would see in him on the court, especially during that OKC game. I would think Michael Malone would have got thrown out because he'd be defending his players with the contact and the non-calls, and then the Jokic fight. He would have gotten thrown out and maybe add some more energy to that. And sometimes with Adelman, it's just too calm. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, I see him on the sideline screaming and getting mad.
Yeah,
but sometimes it's too calm and too, like, even the other day when he was after last night talking about it was inexcusable, but we played great, but there was just some things that were inexcusable. It's like sometimes I hear that too much, where it's, oh, I would think we look great, but this and this. Instead, like again, Malone would be like, we were terrible, we played awful.
This is, I mean, it's always what you were going to sacrifice with by firing Michael Malone. And the thought was that David Adelman's approach is more it fits better with this team, a team that has gone through it, has won a championship. They don't need to be constantly called out and yelled at. They don't need that. They need David Adelman. They need more of an X's and O's guy. They need a guy that can let them figure things out. Well, we've gotten to the point where the players can't figure this out themselves. That's where we're at. And David Adelman is going to have to show. I'm not asking him to morph into Michael Malone, but it's, he's got to get his hands dirty and figure this thing out. And we've seen him be a little bit more critical of the team over the past couple of weeks than he ever has been. But you got to figure it out. The thought was that David Adelman's style, David Adelman's, I don't want to say hands-off approach, but just a little less intense than Michael Malone was what this team needed. And now it doesn't look like that's the case, to your point.
Yeah. And
so I guess the first step in all of this, I think there's an order of operations. They got to get Aaron Gordon back and then have him fix the things he can fix. And then what you hope is there's a domino effect and these other things end up better, because like the defense now, maybe their offensive execution isn't what it still needs to be, but they get more stops than they've been getting recently. So I think the first step is Aaron Gordon coming back, and then going from there. But they're, threading the needle a little bit. The season is not, more of the season is behind us than in front of us. Right. They don't have much time.
So I would say the first step, Aaron Gordon back. He helps that starting 5. He helps them get back into it. Second step, Peyton Watson coming back. Helps that bench unit out. And maybe this, new signing of Jones helps the bench unit out and helps them get enough positive play that Jokic and Murray can rest and not have to play 30, 35 minutes a game.
Isn't it? And I think that your reasoning is completely sound. And you pointed this out while we were off air earlier, that Tyus Jones may be part of the reason why Tyus Jones is being brought in today as the buyout market signee, is because he spent a lot of time with Jonas Valanciunas in Memphis, and maybe you can create a little bit of chemistry there between Tyus Jones and Jonas Valanciunas. I will say, nice knowing you, Jalen Pickett. That's what I can definitely say, because it doesn't seem like, if that's the reason why they brought him in, that Jalen Pickett's going to get a ton of time, and he's a free agent after this year. So,
I would say that is just the bench unit has to get, if the bench unit can get fixed, that helps the starters because it helps them get their rest. And I think that's been a huge issue. That's why Adelman can't find that rotation, because he takes, like you said, number 15, number 27 out. And what's going on? They can't score. There's turnovers. Another person we have to look at, I know he's beloved by the Nuggets, Bruce Brown, hasn't played great.
that's another one. I have not mentioned him today. That's a great point. I mean, and he was doing great defensively against Boston. But again, therein lies the issue, is that the Nuggets, when they can route a team, like, they still have that ability. Right now, it's these close games that are just, everything is going haywire, and Bruce Brown's a great example of that.
Yeah, so it's everybody accountable. And then, like you say, Tim Hardaway, who's a great shot. What did we say the other day? Not shot creator, he's a shot taker. Not necessarily a shot maker right now either. And he just puts up shots and they don't go in. So I think if that gets established, then the starting five does their job and we go back to a top team in the NBA.
Two things, and then we'll move on from this particular subject. One, it's crazy to me how, the depth is part of having depth, is the ability to overcome losses. And we saw without Nikola Jokic on the floor for 3 weeks, the Denver Nuggets had enough depth to push forward. And the fact that we're sitting here and we're talking about the Nuggets needing every single player that is on their roster, plus adding Tyus Jones, they're all necessary. Every single one of them. I don't know that that's the case with OKC.
No.
OKC's been without Jalen Williams for the all-star Jalen Williams, not the one that got into it with Jokic after the Lou Dort trip. Like, they haven't had him for much of the season. OKC, if you look at it in terms of man games lost, is the most negatively impacted team due to injury in the league. And yet OKC's still the 1 seed. OKC looks the only team that people can truly say right now they could take over OKC, and I don't even know if you can, is San Antonio. That's the only clear threat, if they're even that viable of a threat, having never played in the postseason before. But it's like, it wasn't this hard for OKC, and yet it is for Denver. And that's just, I don't know if I fully can explain why, but it's the case. OKC just kept on rolling. We thought Denver was able to keep on rolling, but clearly they can't.
No, simple explanation.
Aaron Gordon?
No, Jokic needs the ball in his hands all the time.
Yeah, Eddie Johnson. He needs the ball. He will die without the ball in his hands.
My biggest thing, it's terrible that the non-Jokic minutes are back for a long. That's what's terrible.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say too here is that, David Adelman has to show here why the Nuggets chose him. It can't just be because, hey, they played well in the playoffs last year. They have to have seen something from David Adelman, room for him to grow into a better head coach than even he was when he took over on an interim basis. Here's a clear growth area for him, is to figure out the rotations, to be able to get the confidence back in this team. He's got to do. Aaron Gordon can't do all the heavy lifting when he comes back. There's more that has to be done, and it's David Adelman's job.
He needs to coach like he coached when Jokic was hurt. When everybody thought the Nuggets are going to go downhill, Jokic isn't playing, and they stepped up. Everybody stepped up and helped that team not fall apart. I think that's what he needs to do instead, and maybe he is relying too much a little on Jokic.
But it's both of these topics tied together. Aaron Gordon being the glue guy that he is. It sounds counterintuitive, but teams, I've seen it at every level. Teams can get by for a period of time. We saw this in the NFL with the backup quarterbacks, right? These backup quarterbacks having a run of success. It sounds weird, but without your best player, I think at the pro level, you can get by. But there are some of these players that are so foundational to what you do, that are so important, that are these glue guys, that if you lose them, then it comes undone. And it's not saying that you would rather have Aaron Gordon than Nikola Jokic. It's not saying that Aaron Gordon is more important to have than Nikola Jokic, but it just shows that there's these guys that again, I go to the glue guy thing, that it's their identity. There's so much wrapped up in this guy that if you don't have them, then things can kind of go awry, even when you have arguably the best player in the world. 719-247-1313. More of your texts. We got Lou Dort thoughts. Some people got Lou Dort thoughts.
Oh yeah, someone did say.
I'll get to those after this, and also with the NHL trade deadline coming up on Friday, a little bit of rumor and innuendo regarding the potential reunion between the Colorado Avalanche and Nazem Kadri. Tonight, both the Avalanche and the Denver Nuggets are in action. Nuggets on Extra Sports 1300 will be taking on the Utah Jazz, or maybe it's Utah Yaz. Might be a soft J. That game tips off at 7. Also tonight, the Avs taking on the Kings. A 2 game trip to Southern California, as tomorrow night they will play the Anaheim Ducks, and you'll be able to hear that game on Extra Sports 1300 tomorrow night. Speaking of, there was a sighting of the Avalanche Brain Trust in Anaheim the other night while Anaheim was playing Calgary, which is interesting because Nazem Kadri plays for Calgary, and we're getting close to the NHL trade deadline. I have not been fed insider information, but I just know that the Avalanche are talking to Calgary about Nazem Kadri. I know they are. There's no doubt in my mind that they aren't broaching the subject. The ultimate question just becomes, what does Calgary want? Obviously. But also, is this really what the Colorado Avalanche should be trying to do? And I understand where a potential reunion has been met with some skepticism, considering Cale Makar is coming up on a massive contract extension. But here's the thing. The one thing that Chris McFarland, you could say above everything else that he knows the cap. All right, this guy has locked up every core piece of this team to an extension, still have money to play with. He's made moves, Mikko Rantanen, to free up more money to bring in a player like Natchez and Brock Nelson. He signed them both. The guy understands what it's going to take to keep Cale Makar in Colorado long-term, and he's not going to jeopardize that by bringing in Nazem Kadri. He's just not. But that doesn't mean that there's not some work that has to be done. I think it's very difficult to envision the Colorado Avalanche with Nazem Kadri beyond the rest of this season. The guy has multiple years left on his contract, and he's not cheap for what would be basically a third-line center. So there's going to have to be some cap gymnastics moving forward to, remove, do you buy him out? Do you flip him? I understand that there is more work to be done, but Chris McFarland knows the cap. He knows the ramifications, and he's not going to make any move between now and Friday that is going to cause any concern that Cale Makar is not going to stay in an Avs sweater. Now, what those cap gymnastics are, what they can do, that's above my pay grade. But I think you have to, if you're an Avalanche fan, trust that Chris McFarland would do nothing to jeopardize the long-term future of Cale Makar in an Avs sweater, because that would be organizational malpractice. That would be a fireable offense to let Cale Makar walk out the front door. But you also have to take into account, it is very clear that the Avalanche are all in. And when you are all in the way that the Avalanche are, and they can see it, right? They're the best. They've been the best team in the league from beginning to right now. They can taste whatever beverage they choose to fill up Lord Stanley's cup with. They can taste it. And they are going to do something, I think, between now and Friday that is going to be, I think it's going to be a little outside the box. I think it's going to be something that's going to, surprise some people. Like I'm seeing this, they'll just go out and get Scott Lawton, run of the mill, third line center. Come on now. No. That's not what the Avs are going to do. Or I'll put it this way. They're either making a significant move or they don't do anything. That's where I'm at on the Monday before the trade deadline. They're either going to do something that is going to be headline grabbing that you as an Avs fan are going to go, ooh, or they will do nothing. And if they do nothing, it is because they weren't able to figure out whether it's Nazem Kadri or some of these other players, they weren't able to quite figure out how to move forward. Asking price was too high. Couldn't get Nazem Kadri to accept the role that he would have with the Avalanche, whatever it might be. But they're trying to do something significant. Now, let me put this name out there and see what you think of it. What about Ryan O'Reilly? Does that qualify? So if not Nazem Kadri, because of all these financial things and the role that Nazem Kadri would take on, maybe he's not amenable to that. Would Ryan O'Reilly, would you look at that and be like, yes, that is the answer? He's not better than Nazem Kadri, but I would say that type of a move would certainly make headlines. I think as an Avs fan, you'd like the move. So maybe that's the consolation prize. But there's too much smoke billowing right now with a reunion between Nazem Kadri and the Avs for there not to be discussions, for the Avs not to be trying to make this thing happen. Will they? Stay tuned. That'll be all for today. Appreciate your patronage. Tomorrow, just programming note, I have Air Force and San Diego State to call starting at 3:30 tomorrow. So on Extra Sports 1300, it will be network programming. On KVOR, it will be me for a little bit, and then a lot of me calling the basketball game. So we'll reconvene truly in the way that we did today coming up on Wednesday. Enjoy your evening. Nuggets and Jazz coming up at 7 on Extra Sports 1300.